Alright, so I will be sharing my thoughts on Capernaum, the Era of Warriors. This is the newest short film from Ansel Harris, who is the founder of Vil Ventures and GT Network. And this is based on his Vil Ventures, I don't want to call it cinematic as yet, but just his, just superhero universe, right? It's just this vast universe. It draws from the comic books that he's been doing since he was a kid, and now he's been putting them out basically as live action, right? And he's been doing this practically for the past 3 years or so, right? So yeah, this is the newest entry here, and here this is where I don't want to call it, like I'm not, I don't want to call this like a feast, whoever it is. I'm not looking at this as phases. I'm just seeing this as just chapters being told, and they're all going to lead up to a grander story, right? And this one in particular feels like it's setting up something really huge, right? So what it's about, right? So it's a prequel to, well, a limited series that he put out a couple of years ago called Vaser Claw, right? So this one focuses on the character of Vaser Claw, or I should say it focuses on numerous characters here, right? So in this case here, it's about Vaser Claw, and if you remember from the finale of that series, he was after this particular guy called Excalibur, who is like this big criminal on the planet of Capernaum.
Right.
And it pretty much threatens his, just the royal lineage that he has. And, it's just a bunch of drama going on, right? So basically this Excalibur guy is bad news, and he's been tracking him down, right? But the thing is, apparently, even though it was presumed that he died, he was killed or whatever in the end of Vaser Claw, his body has not been found. So he's like now thinking, oh, something's up. Maybe he's still alive, right? And surprise, surprise, he's still alive, but we're not really sure exactly what part he's going to play later on, right? There's also the setup of the re-establishment of the Gen program. That's like these super soldiers. This was introduced in Vaser Claw as well, but we really saw the genesis of that with the Tamiya short film, which dropped a while back, earlier this year. And also we are setting up the character of Razor, which for me, I am familiar with, right? I don't want to say marginally or majorly familiar with, but I do know this character because this was actually the first comic book that that Ansel himself released, right? And yeah, this was how I was able to meet Ansel in the first place, right? So this, in a nutshell, this is pretty much the introduction. Like this is like the introductory chapter to Reza, or King Reza, I should say, right? Because he and all have his own backstory. He has his own mission, and it has to do with more or less finding Vaser Claw and helping him more or less revive the Claw clan, right? So yes, he was like the Claw clan was like separated for years, and now apparently like Vaser is going to be the guy who is going to bring this group together, and together they're going to take down the forces of evil and all that jazz, right? So yeah, just off of that sort of briefish description I gave here, yes, this is going for a much grander, more epic scope, right? And I will say, right, like as far as everything that we've seen here before, this one feels the most mature, right? And I'll explain why in a bit, right? So for one thing, I actually kind of commend Ansel for doing this. Yeah, he put a little disclaimer at the beginning saying that, this is going to be inappropriate. Like, sorry, it has content that's going to be inappropriate for younger viewers. Parental discretion is advised, right? I'm like, all right, well, okay, I get, right? Although for me personally, I guess it's just because I watch a lot of shows, there's nothing all too objectionable here, right? Like, I mean, for one thing, there is a love-making scene, that's all I would say, right? But it's very tastefully done, nothing too out there or shocking or explicit about that, right? But I mean, this is like the first time we've ever seen this happen, right? And then as far as, I'm also thinking, the content may have to do with a particular fight scene that takes place, right? And I will say, like, as far as, just choreography go, I really applaud the effort that was done here. You really feel the punches and kicks, as all I'll say without spoiling anything. It really feels, surprisingly a little more visceral than the kind of fights that we've seen before, right? I will say though that, just like, I'm not speaking as some sort of fight choreographer or whatever it is like that, right? But there are moments where it feels like, characters are sort of waiting for the punch to come, You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
just felt like, you know, the movement.
Edited a little better.
Well, editing is one part, but I also felt like the movements, or I should say, how
Oh, you're right. You block in, right? Okay.
yeah. How the combatants, sorry, move. You know, like if they're going to attack, right? I felt that could have been done a lot quicker, right? So instead of just sort of lying down and then waiting for the character to come to do the blow for them to respond, you know what I mean? They should have actually kind of moved a little bit quicker, right? But the surprise for me came in the form of Ricardo Lopez, who plays King Reza, right? For me, like he got the look down, right? So I'm just going off of what I remember off of that comic book from like back in the 2000s, right? This is how old these stories are, right? Yeah, you know, he just has a specific look about him. You know, and you know, I actually really dug the dialogue, right? Just and also that's another thing I want to give credit to, right? The dialogue, it really feels well thought out. It feels very rich in the sense that it's not just, you know, I'm feeling this kind of way, blah 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 blah. You know, it's really like, oh, there are stakes involved. There's something big that's gonna happen, and this is how I feel about this situation. I do like that there is some heart to these characters and how they feel about the situation that they're in. Whether it's King Reza and the destiny that is laid out in front of him, but he's not really sure. You know, the path itself is very unclear to him, and he just needs guidance, right? And then, well, of course, with Visa and his mission and him not knowing that there's something bigger going on as well. So I do like the effort put into the dialogue, especially how it's delivered as well too. I thought that was really well done, right? That being said, though, my main issue with this film here, Capernaum, is that while I do appreciate setup, right? I have no problem with setup, but it's funny too because we're gonna talk about a show later on that is basically about setup, and I know that there will be
All
people,
setup,
who already will say, "Boy, that was a letdown because it was all set up and nothing happened. It was just all set up, blah blah blah," right? But in that case, well, when we get to that, we'll get to that, right? But in the case of this here, it is setting up something bigger, right? Two problems though. One, we still don't know what the big setup is, right? It's not like with being told that there's some sort of war, for example, like there's some sort of war going on or some big body's gonna come. You know what I mean? Like we don't know what the threat is as yet. We just being told that there is something that is going to happen and something has to happen first and it's going to lead to something, but we still don't know what the thing is, right? And I felt this could have been the opportunity for us to know exactly what to look forward to. So I'll try example. It's kind of like, Thanos. Like, Thanos is the big bad guy,
right.
and he's getting all these Infinity Stones and all these kind of things. So the shows that are leading up to this is about our heroes preparing for that threat, right? So we still don't know what the threat is. That's the problem, right? That's one thing. Second thing, and that leads to how these scenes and how the whole show here, the special, if you will, is set up. They do feel like individual scenes that are meant to connect to each other, but I felt that they didn't. It's just sort of each scene is specific to a certain character or a certain sequence or a certain subplot is specific to a certain character. And from there, it's just like, you're just there like kind of hoping that it will all, like all these stories will eventually connect to something, i.e. the threat, but it kind of doesn't, right? So case in point, we have this Jen soldier, right? And she is sent on this mission apparently to avenge her dad, right? And then she runs into this sort of like bad guy, the Sand Warrior. And yes, it is played by Keon Byron, who, like, okay, I don't know, it's just sort of funny that, he just always plays these masked warriors, you know what I mean? So it's kind of weird, right? And that is the fight that I mentioned earlier, right? But yeah, outside of that, it doesn't really connect to Vaser's story or Reza's story at all. It just feels like just a side mission that sort of happens, sort of starts and just sort of ends, and that's it, right? So to make a long story short, I really felt like these stories could have connected. Like we all could have, like all of them could have all led up to, I don't know, like a reveal of who the main of what the main threat is, or who the main villain is, and who eventually Vaser and Reza will have to, I guess, team up to fight, right? We still don't know, right? And also too, just before I forget, there's also a scene that was from a recent film, I'm not gonna say what it is, that shows back up. And you're there thinking that it's gonna add some kind of context, and it kind of does in a way, but the way I should say without spoiling anything, the way where it's placed, I felt was literally in the wrong spot. It should have been earlier on. That's all I'll say without spoiling anything, right? Because it just feels like a repeat of what we saw before, right? And it just ultimately didn't really add anything to the main narrative because, again, we still don't know what all this is leading up to, right? So, yeah, at the end of the day, this was, setting up something, but we just don't know what the thing is, right? Now, what would have been interesting now is if this was like the first part of like some new, I don't know, limited series called Capernaum. Like, let me just say it's called Capernaum, right?
Right.
So the follow-up will be, this is what all this is going to lead up to, right? But apparently this is a special, and this is going to lead up to what will eventually be the second season of Vaser Claw, right? But still, even if it's all leading,
in between something.
Yeah, even if it is, I don't want to call it a filler episode, but even if it is leading up to something, right? Leading up to another show or a film or movie, whatever it is, right? The audience still has to know, this is what we should look forward to, right? Because I know it's bigger than Excalibur and Vaser Claw and Razor, you know what I mean? So something, it has to be, whether it's a war or whether it's like a bad guy or something like that. I felt like we still are left unclear as to what all this is leading up to, right? And you feel it even more too because, just how disconnected these sequences feel like, right? Even if it's just expository scenes like the one with with King Razor, or if it's like an action sequence like the one with that Gen soldier, right? Yeah, it's still kind of connected to to something bigger, right? And I felt I didn't get that here. Yeah, so for me overall, I'll give this a decent, strong 3 out of 5. It's eyed for what it is, but I felt it was just lacking in just connective tissue. They needed to be something to connect all these stories together, and we could have come out of it like, this is what we should look forward to in the next film, right? Whether it's Vaser Claw season 2 or whatever it is, right? Whether it's a war or a big threat or a big bad guy or whatever it is. This could have been the film that could have established that, but instead it's just build up for something, but we still don't know what that something is, right? As far as the edgier approach to the content goes, I admire that. I think that's actually quite refreshing, to be honest. I don't know if this will be the style going forward, if we're gonna get more TVPG content out of it. But if that's what Answer want to do, fine, right? But still, at the end of the day, I just hope that with the next film that comes up, we get a clearer sense of what this big story is gonna be about, right? Because we get in the introductions, we get in the setup and all that, but still no idea of what it is to look forward to. And I do hope that with the next film, we just get an idea of what to look forward to. And that's really all I have to say about that, right? But in the meantime, though, it is, I should say Capernaum Era of Warriors is available now on GT Network. So just log into gtnetworktv.com. It's there. And I will be looking forward to the next film to come out of Villeventures. But for now, it's worth checking out, right? But I would recommend, recapping stuff like Vaser Claw and Tamiya, in case you're still lost or you just forgot certain things, right? And that's fine, right? This is a wide universe after all, and there's a lot of things going on, right? But like I said before, with this one, I felt like this could have been the moment where it's like, this is what everything's all leading up to. But still, they're like, we'd have to wait longer, man. But I hope that we don't have to wait too long for the next installment in this Villeventures series. And that's it.